In part 1 of this series, we looked at the complex politics that led to Joash being crowned king of Judah. In the second part, we were reminded about the need to engage positively with society. There was a warning about social media and an encouragement to help out with community activities. In this third and final part, we look at the later events in Joash's reign. So, Joash is born, Joash becomes king, Joash lives happily ever after. Except that he doesn't. Spoiler alert. He is assassinated by 2 of his palace officials. The Bible doesn't do fairy tales. Look at David, a man after God's own heart. Kills the giant, marries the girl, becomes king, writes the Psalms, and seduces a married woman, gets her pregnant, and arranges for her husband to be killed in battle. Not good. David was essentially a good man, but he made some serious mistakes, and the Bible is candid about showcasing his legacy, warts and all. Well, in our story, the day comes when Jehoiada, the high priest, dies and is buried with full honours. And with his death, something changes in the spiritual climate of the nation. Listen to 2 Chronicles chapter 24. After the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and they worshipped Asherah poles and idols. Because of their guilt, God's anger came upon Judah and Jerusalem. Although the Lord sent prophets to the people to bring them back to him, and though they testified against them, the people would not listen. You want to ask, why would they do this? Why would the people of God turn their backs on the Lord, having only so recently returned? Well, part of the answer lies in the fact that Joash reigns for 40 years. So many of the people have only a distant memory of what life was like under Athaliah. And idolatry is so much easier. You can see what you're worshipping, and it is often mixed up with sensual practices that appeal to baser human instincts. As the adage puts it, each generation has to rediscover true religion for themselves. Well, sadly, things go from bad to worse. God raises up prophets, but they are ignored. Up in the northern kingdom, Elisha has a school of prophets ready to provoke and challenge unbelief. And then God's Spirit falls upon Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada. Listen to what transpires. Zechariah stood before the people and said, "This is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands? You will not prosper. Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has forsaken you." But they plotted against Zechariah, and by order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. It is especially damning that this murder is carried out at the command of Joash. Here is a reading from Luke chapter 11, where Jesus seems to refer to this incident. "Therefore this generation will be held responsible for the blood of all the prophets that has been shed since the beginning of the world, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who was killed between the altar and the sanctuary." Not long after this, the army of Aram invades. The writer of Chronicles interprets this as God's judgment upon the sinful nation and their unfaithful king. Jerusalem is attacked, people are killed, the treasury is looted, and 2 of Joash's officials decide that it is all the king's fault, and so they murder him in his own bed. consider the loss of his legacy. The boy king who heralded an end to Baal worship and the restoration of the temple. The young man so concerned that God's temple should be well maintained. And the 40-year-old who turned his back on all of it. When Matthew records his genealogy listing the kings of Judah, he skips over Joash. His name does not appear even once in the New Testament. Well, as we all become older, it is appropriate to consider one's legacy. How will we be remembered? What example do we leave behind for others? We've all heard of famous ministers who have ended their careers by committing adultery or caught up in some financial disgrace. No matter how much good they did beforehand, what is remembered is the scandal, and by association, the hypocrisy. It is important to keep going right to the end. Paul describes this in 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 7. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Of course, it doesn't have to be a scandal that robs us of our legacy. Consider the minister who serves faithfully until retirement, preaching the word, visiting the sick, encouraging the weak. Then something goes wrong in his retirement and he stops attending church. And then he stops reading his Bible or even thinking about God. He might spend the next 20 years like this, and perhaps no one will think to rebuke him. Like Joash of old, he has stepped off the narrow path. He has not kept the faith. This is a danger whether we have served in church leadership or not. Whether we're in our 20s or our 40s or our 60s or even in our 80s. Let us keep on fighting the good fight. Let us keep on running until we have finished the race. And let us keep the faith of Jesus burning bright. God bless you.